Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Morning. How are you today?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
I'm fine.
Good.
Doing.
Okay, good morning, all. How are we doing today?
Excellent,
Morning.
excellent.
Okay, very good, very good. I trust that you all had a productive week, and we've been following the news, and we have loads to share. Now, of course, this we're on chapter 2, and chapter 2 talks about tax evasion. And it also covers, I guess my page is missing, and it covers sanctions. And of course, we know, and if we've been watching the news all week and for the past month, we know that there's a war going on between Russia and Ukraine. And so America has imposed loads of sanctions on Russia. They were already heavily sanctioned, and so more sanctions are being placed on them. So hopefully we would have read the chapter and we'll be able to have a good provocative discussion on what's actually happening right now in America. Okay. Did anybody have the opportunity to read the chapter?
I
Silence?
touched base, but I couldn't understand it that fully. So
Okay, so good. So Owen, I can check with you at the end of class, and by the end of class, we should ensure that we understand. There was somebody that sent an email about homework, the classwork. Was it Tira? Is Tira here? Are there any questions? Is there anybody else that had attempted chapter 1's questions and had questions? Or we understand how to answer those and where to get that information from?
are you talking about the homework?
No, the classwork, not the homework. Because the homework isn't due until the 18th. So we're not looking at the homework as yet, the classwork just after chapter 1. You had questions about the homework, Owen?
Not really. I mean, it appeared to be straightforward, but when I read through the Eggman group, I realized that the Eggman group, because I think it's like an award program, like about persons creating different case scenarios, as it relates to different money laundering and terrorist financing and drug trafficking. It's like, it appears to be like how the Grammy Awards is, persons coming together and putting together various case studies, and then they vie for a certain award by producing some of their case studies. That's what I got from the Eggman group. And I don't know if I'm on the same platform or right and on the right track in terms of understanding it, but that's what I got from the Eggman group.
I wouldn't call it an awards program. These are FIUs around the world. And so financial intelligence units come together and they discuss their most, I guess, popular cases. And they put together, the type of crimes, there are 21 crimes under money laundering. And so they talk about drug trafficking and then fraud and human trafficking and pornography and corruption and bribery. And they, do an overview of popular cases under those topics. And so the financial intelligence unit is, of course, where we would send our suspicious transaction report, right? And after we would have submitted that report, they do an investigation. And if the investigation proves that this person could be money laundering, then they turn it over to the police. Okay, so I don't know if I would say an award, but just to show you how complex or the complexities and the criminals go through, the different tactics that they take. Again, if we look back at terrorist financing and bin Laden, he lived for 10 years after September 11. How did he live? He was blocked out from every bank. He did not work. He needed insulin every day. How possible did he live a comfortable life with wives and air conditioning and steaks and lobsters? How did he do it? And so that's what the Eggman group seeks to give us awareness and insight on. Hey, this is how they do it.
Miss Bullard. So
Yeah?
I read the three
Cases.
there's 3 cases. Thank you.
Mhm.
And my question is, like, where do I go, or how do I find cases on local events. I mean, when I Googled, I found little newspaper excerpts, but they didn't go into a deep dive as the Egmont group did. So my question is, are we expected to go and find or dig into the local cases in order to compare? And if so, where do we find this information? Or where do we find the cases?
So whatever the Tribune and the Guardian would have written about the case, that's the expectation. And so for years, you know, we are considered a transit country, and there are millions of cases out on drug trafficking, okay? And drug trafficking, again, was just added under money laundering. We always had that problem, correct? So from the white major to the Nighty Nose, to the Sean Isaacs, to the prison officers getting arrested every day for sneaking drugs into the, you know, and all these different drug busts. Once a week, there's a big drug bust, right? There was one just in Crooked Island that involved the police. So whatever is written in the Tribune and the Guardian, you just say, according to the Tribune of this day, this is what happened.
Okay,
And
thank you.
is the Bahamas plagued with drug trafficking? Of course it is.
Could we create our own cases?
When you say create a case, what you mean?
Create our own scenario then, I mean.
No, it has to be something that actually happened. Yeah, so you want to look, like I said, there are millions of cases, especially the book talks about trafficking drugs through the prison. We have at least 50 cases about trafficking drugs through the prison. We just had a girl who pretended to be a lawyer, created a fake thing from the legal counsel just to sneak drugs into the prison to her boyfriend. Now she is remanded. Okay, Norman's Key from back in the day, or you know, all the drug busts. Loads of cases. Y'all shouldn't have a problem finding anything on drug trafficking. Okay, but let me know how it goes when you do your research. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Is Norman's Key really real?
Yes, yes, it is. I have a good friend who works down there right now.
That was a transshipment point.
They hiring right now. They have ad right on LinkedIn looking for people to come work down there. It's now a private resort. Okay, so yeah, you could check it out.
Watch Flow, Owen.
Yes.
Blow. They had Norman's Key on Blow. It was a true story.
Yeah, yeah, that's what they say.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about all the taxes, and I guess I skipped too far because sanctions are in chapter 3. So chapter 3 is next week. So right now, just the taxes today, and I promise you by the end of the class we'll understand all about the taxes and how they work and why they're important. Okay, so anybody read the newspaper? Well, what's happening in the news? What Putin do this week?
Rise in gas prices. That's a good one.
Yeah, okay, tell us what, and people, you know, I don't like to listen to the hearsay because people say gas could be $10. What the news say? What the actual facts are, Owen? What you read about the gas?
I mean, the facts are it didn't go to the 6%, but it's like 552. Some went up as much as 552, and some went up as much as 516. So, but it's still not $6. I mean, it's a couple cents shy, but I don't think you should blow it up. It's not blown out of proportion because we had gas at that rate before a couple years back.
And on the islands, you know, that's how much the gas is. So I don't need to listen to a pot cake sign. They just pot cake say gas to be $10. Anybody saw a pot cake sign this week?
No, I didn't saw his sign.
Yeah, his one said gas could be $10 because of this war.
I want to compare that to an article that was talked about with BPL, where they increased from I think 5% to 13 point something percent because of the fuel charge, and where Prime Minister Davis is trying to see how he could put a cap on that. And I thought that was interesting. And when you really look at it, BPL is not, they're not trying to propose to raise by 13%, but 13%. So you could imagine, you know, how the cost of living will be or the inflation costs, will be taken into account if BPL do go up by 13.7%. I mean, a loaf of bread would probably be $20 then.
Correct.
I
Yeah,
thought that was
correct.
interesting.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, I am waiting to see how long he could really retract that statement for, because if we pay attention, they just approved for the port to increase electricity in Freeport, and there was a lot of outrage from that, but it went through. So I was surprised he retracted that. I mean, there was a lot of outrage when it was announced, but I expect them to approve it. He is just, I guess it's too soon and too many things. They just passed their 100 days, and I guess they're looking at ratings and how people are going to react. But as long as BPL is around and we using gas for electricity, it's going to continue to rise. So I'll wait to see how long he can retract that statement. I don't see them approving Freeport to increase and not Nassau. But let's wait and see. Monica, you want to add something?
Yes, I read a newspaper article yesterday, and it was about the U.S. government report that highlights money laundering risks in casino and online gaming. Because of the topic, I thought it was very interesting, so I read deeper and I realized they were saying that the Bahamas faces money laundering challenges in its casino and online industry. The central bank report that from January to September 2021, casino games generated $856 million in sales and $131 million in gross revenue. And it ran on to talk about more how they suspect money laundering was going on, but they never really said ways that money could be laundered through the casino and was not. So for me, I mean, I know it's easy to do it through the casino, but I'm trying to figure out how could they do it through the web shops if, Sabas, them have a limit. You only can put $300 on an account and withdraw it. Other than that, you would have to gamble. So I'm thinking now, if I have to gamble, I cannot really money launder because ain't no guarantee that I will win to get this money off to make it legit. So why is this really a big thing? Now, I'm meteorology, so this is kind of, new for me. So I wanted you to explain further, how is that possible?
Okay, so at the back of your book, there are the various cases, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And
Yes,
so
ma'am.
I want you to go, I don't know if it's case 1, case 2, or case 3, but there is a report on casinos at the back there. Can you confirm that
Okay,
for me?
I'm looking.
Online casino gambling. I looking for it as well, but my book. Okay, it says MoneyVal, the use of online gambling for money laundering and the financing of terrorism purposes. Okay. And if you take a look at that, you see it?
Where is that? I don't see
No,
it.
ma'am, I ain't see it.
Nobody has that?
No, I see the one with human trafficking. I'm looking right now. I see fraud.
Yeah, I see fraud by Western Union and what's not.
Yeah, but I'm
Gaming, yeah.
okay. The use of online gambling for money laundering and financing terrorism purposes. That's what you.
Right.
What page?
Okay, let me. You notice? Okay, so you have to go. It's before the Edmund Group. Look behind the pink copy. The fourth, I guess, the fourth chapter. Let me see. 1, 2, the third after the pink, the third pink page. Y'all see it?
I'm looking.
In my book, it's case number 3.
Yeah, that's what I said behind the third
Yeah.
pink page.
Yes, I find it.
Just take some time and you read that, and it tells you what are the money laundering risks, how they have used, what are the vulnerabilities and any issues that law enforcement experience. There's red flag indicators and also good information. So just read that, and then that'll give you some insight on how the money launderers have used online gambling to, infiltrate the system. Okay?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
then,
Thank you.
then next week, let's talk about how is Island Luck or at risk. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
great. Okay, good. All right. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else read the newspaper?
I said, this to Neil, Miss Bullard, I thought it was interesting. I think it was the EU who said it would be their first time actually purchasing weapons to help a country defend themselves in their history. So I thought that was an interesting development that went on. And right now, the president of Ukraine is trying to enter into membership, which they have not been able to do before. So if that occurs, I think that would be very, very interesting for this time period. And I read how we were talking about, his name is Ben Bankman-Fried, how he has just purchased, or he's in the talks of purchasing 3 separate properties to start a building, and they're trying to maybe move they're trying to set up a digital currency and asset scheme work over here right now and move it from Hong Kong. And in commission with that, the Securities Commission is looking at not making regulations for them, but whereas rules to see how that would be structured in the Bahamian society.
Okay, so very good, very good. Again, if you don't keep up, you get left behind. But of course, this is all new. We have to, it's going to be a trial and error period before we get it right. And hopefully, we would learn from, like I said, we always leverage off of Cayman, off of Luxembourg, and what laws they already have in place. So hopefully we can do that. I was a little bit disappointed in the EU this week because I think that NATO had asked them to turn off SWIFT for Russia. And, there was grand debate about, will we really turn off SWIFT for Russia? Russia had tried to create another system, and the SWIFT system is how wires are sent and all the transfers. So definitely, if no wires can go in and out of the country, that would definitely cripple their financial services sector. And before it happened, it should stop Putin, from this war. However, they had many meetings and they came back and they said, yes, we are going to turn off SWIFT. And I was like, oh, okay, really, really good. So when I looked later in the week to see exactly what they turned off, Russia has 300 banks connected in the SWIFT payment system, and they turned off 7. So I was very, very disappointed. I said, really, like turning off 7 banks should really, really put pressure on Russia to stop. And of course it didn't. Putin just came on the television and said, please, no more sanctions. This war is about peace. This is a peace effort, So I was thinking, then I tried to compare it to Bahamas. I said, okay, let's just say those 7 banks were like Royal Bank, CIBC, and the major Canadian banks. I said, then probably that would have put a dent in, the economy in the Bahamas. But if you go and turn off SWIFT for Fidelity and you turn off SWIFT for Bank of the Bahamas, what all the Bahamians could do? Just go to the other banks, right? But I know you can't send a wire now unless you have an account with an institution. Is that at all banks now? Tennille, would you know?
No, ma'am, I don't know if it's at all banks, but to add to what you're saying, I saw that, I think it was the Prime Minister who made a comment that they would not be sanctioning or putting sanctions on Russia until they got the all clear from America. So I do agree that it's not all banks or all countries who have cut off sending money to Russia.
Right, because we have a big Russian portfolio right here in the Bahamas, and Russia. I mean, I don't see how we are waiting for an all clear from America when America is sanctioning them left, right, and center, just like how Venezuela is sanctioned and Cuba is sanctioned, right? But we still do business with them. So I don't see how they waiting on a message from America. If America has sanctioned these countries, then we normally follow suit, right? So again, too, from our country's aspect, I was very surprised, but I guess we too afraid. We don't want to be involved. They Putin already landed 2 planes in Venezuela, very close to us. And during the pandemic, when he said, "Oh, I'm going to donate aid to Venezuela and I'm going to build them 2 airports," I was like, "Why would you need to build 2 airports?" And now we know why. And that was what, in early 2020, when he started this airport for his fighter jets to be able to land there, because that's how long he had to, be planning this war. Okay, but like I say, next week we'll get deep into it and talk more about the sanctions and see if they are effective or not. Okay, so very good, very good. Okay, so let's talk about anybody else wanted to share?
Now, you said something, but you think you would need an account with a bank to be able to send a wire transfer?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so too, because I now work at Fidelity, and a fellow wanted to send some funds to China so he can be able to buy a starter car. And because I asked him if he has an account with us, he said, yeah. So when I look up his name, his account was closed, it was dormant. And he asked me if I can't open the account. And I said, no. He came back with his wife, and his wife had an active account with us. And I asked her, I said, why he just couldn't go RBC if that's who he banks with. So she said she don't have an account with RBC, so she can't send the wire. So she said they prefer to send it at Fidelity because the charges were cheaper.
Okay, yeah.
And
So go ahead.
and my manager told me to tell her she can't send the wire because her name is not on the wire transfer information. So I guess that is what it is with all banks.
Right.
So
In order to
So
send that wire, you have to have an account. But I mean, of course we are required to know our customers. Go
yeah,
ahead, Gwen.
I know before time they allowed us to send wires for up to 3,000 for non-customers, but of recent we cut it out. Like, we can't do anything for non-customers. You have to have an account with the bank at Scotia in order to be able to send out a wire or get a draft. Like, we do limited business or transactions for non-customers.
Oh, okay. So I guess those 7 banks, the customers at those banks, and perhaps they're using a staggered approach. Look, Putin, we're gonna turn off these first 7 banks, and you're gonna get uproar from the customers at this bank. Because suppose this is the only bank that you have money, and a relationship with. So those customers at those particular banks will suffer. And then let's see what happens next week, if they're gonna increase the number of banks that they cut off SWIFT to, or even if it goes any further. So I guess you have to stay tuned to watch. But if you can't get money in and out of the country, that's going to be a big problem economically for them. And like I said, they knew all of this was coming. They tried to do a carbon copy system. They call it STPS. It's similar to SWIFT, but only Russia and China, so they could send money between Russia and China. So of course there's always a black market or a workaround, right? And so I guess all the money is going to get very expensive then to send and trade with Russia, because they will, China will still accept SWIFT. You'll have to send the money to China, and then China will send it to Russia. And so of course, can you imagine double fees and how expensive it'll be to do business? But that'll be better than nothing at all. So yeah, that's how it'll work, I guess. Because right now, in the Swiss banks, we have a Russian portfolio, we have a Cuban portfolio, and we have a big Venezuelan portfolio, right? And of course, you know, none of those wires can go through the Fed. None of those wires can go to the US because the US have all of those countries sanctioned. And of course, Canada does as well. So you can't use a US or correspondent bank to send those wires. So they go through the EU or the European countries through Switzerland and the UK, and those correspondent banks accept the wires and send it. And that's why they are putting pressure on the EU to and the European countries to cut SWIFT off, because America and you know, Canada had to cut off for years now. Okay. All right, so just so you understand how it works. So like I said, by the end of the discussion, you'll fully understand taxes. And if you don't, we'll walk you through it. And definitely we get to chapter 3. It just seems cloudy, but it's very easy and very easy questions to ask on, to answer on the exam. Okay? Okay, good. So let's get into chapter 2. Tax evasion and laundering the proceeds. Okay, so again, how do countries make money? They make it from their natural resources, or they make it through taxes. This is the majority of the revenue that a country makes, and then from exports. So let's think about our Bahamas. What do we export? Nothing, right? Or very with 5% export, if even that. Do we collect any money from our natural resources? No, it goes to one particular family, right? Do we have a national lottery? No, we use a capitalist system, and we gave 8 licenses to 8 people. So those 8 people made $550 million in 2021. Did the Bahamas get anything other than 3 million out of that? 4 million in 8 million, because they charge $1 million for licenses. They probably got 10 million out of the 550 million. Could the Bahamas use the 550 million? Of course, but it went to 8 persons. Okay. So if countries make money through national lotteries, natural resources, and taxation, and we don't do that, you could understand why we have such a high deficit and why you know, we have to borrow. Okay, so in 2014, President Obama said, if I borrow any more money from the Chinese, I am going to have to bow to them. So before I borrow money from the Chinese, I'm going to fix my tax system, right? And there are billions of dollars in offshore jurisdictions that hold American dollars. And so we're going to make a law that says anywhere an American has money, whether they live in America or not, that country has to pay to disclose to us that our citizen has money there, or they have to pay 30% of their portfolio US dollars. Now, of course, we know that I think there are 195 to 215 countries listed in the world, and 90% of them take, you know, accept the US dollar. And that makes, once you accept that currency or exchange that currency in your country, that makes it extraterritorial. That gives the US some rights in your country. And so back in 2014, of course, all the tax jurisdictions signed treaties with various, with America, first of all, and said that, hey, even if your country, your citizen no longer lives in the US, but they have money in the Bahamas, we are going to disclose that to you, and you are going to get your 15 to 30%, because that's how high taxes are in Canada as well as in the United States. You know, there are different tax brackets, but anywhere, I would say from 7% to the 30% you can pay in taxes. And this is crucial because this is how countries make money. And so Obama sought to fix America rather than borrow. And around the world, they made countries sign these treaties that they would disclose this information. So what this meant for Bahamas, that was considered a tax haven, Switzerland, that was considered a tax haven, Cayman, that was considered tax haven, and BVI, and these other Caribbean countries, is that it didn't matter anymore if my citizen wanted to keep money in your country. They can keep that money. However, they're going to still pay their tax. And so after we signed these keys, and I think they signed them in like 214, 215, by 217 was our first reporting year to the US. That means all our US, and they have something called US Evasion, that if you have a US driver's license, a US telephone number, a US address, you could be considered liable for tax purposes in America. And therefore, they would want you to report them to America, and the IRS would do an investigation. Okay? So just to let you know the sum of money, but we would be talking about yearly, the US government spent $18 million to upgrade their IRS to be able to accept this money from all around the world. So if they spent $18 million on trainings, on hires, and implementing systems, you know that they were making trillions of dollars in tax dollars in order to spend that amount of money to put those systems in place, right? And so they put it in place, and in the first year, it was a huge success. Just like the first year we put VAT in place, huge success. They collected $1 billion in VAT. Same thing with America. They made their $18 million in the first year. So after, they reported that, they made all this money, and banks around the world were complying. The rest of the world said, well, I need my tax dollar, and I need my tax dollar. So Switzerland said, well, I need my tax dollar. Greece said, I need mine. Who else? England, Luxembourg, every country around the world then decided that they needed to fix their tax system just like Obama, and they followed suit. So in the US, it was FACA, and let me give you the correct thing, because it sounds like the FATF, but it isn't, and a lot of times people get them too confused. So let me give you the right definition. I'm looking. Foreign, where is it? Any of y'all should know this because you all read this.
Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act.
Right. So that is FATCA, and that is the US tax system, okay, and or tax platform in order for them to collect their taxes. Then the rest of the world fell under the OECD, and we know the OECD is one of our international regulators, and they call it CRS, Common Reporting Standard. Okay, so each year now, since 2017, you report to the US, all of their US clients, and you report, if you have Swiss clients, you report the Swiss to Switzerland. If you are French, you report them to France, and to Austria, and to so on and so on. Okay, so each country around the world, they are now getting their tax dollars. Okay, what does this mean for the Bahamas? Okay, so we were a tax haven, of course, and that made our jurisdiction very attractive. So we had billions of customers come in, and all these, Julius Baer, Deltec Bank, and Tobacco, even Royal Bank, Private Banking and Trust. We had offshore accounts. Anybody who works in the offshore system would know billions of dollars in the offshore system. Okay, and before 2017, it was actually cheaper to pay Royal Bank $10,000 in fees than to pay 30% of your $10 million to the US government every year, right? And so that made it attractive, okay? And so, like I say, we had lots of customers just simply not disclosing to their country that they had this money in the Bahamas. They would file their taxes each year, and each year they'd say, oh, this is how much money I have in America. You could check the banks, and I'm going to pay you a percentage of that. So they didn't pay any taxes on the money overseas. until 2017. And so what happened was they gave a repatriation period. They said, listen, we know y'all have these billions of dollars all around the world. We're going to give you 2 years with no filings to bring this money back home. In 2017, then you all will pay for the first time. So I think they gave 215 and 216 for the US and the various countries, because Switzerland just reported for the first time in 2020. So in you could bring your money home from 217 straight to 219 and not be fined for lying to your IRS, you know. And like I told you all, I was working at a bank where we were shutting down, and the IRS said, listen, that guy has $10 million. He is being fined for tax evasion. He did not report to the US since 2017. We're going to tell you the amount. And remember, on the last day when we closed, I told you all this story that I had to send the IRS 6 million and he only got 4. That's for evading for those 4 years. Okay. And so, like I said, it was cheaper to pay your account manager, the Royal Bank, Hans Barker, Julius Baer, $10,000 a year, than 30% of your total assets. So in that repatriation period, of course, person said this, you know, they talked to their lawyers, they talked to all sorts of persons. How do I avoid this? And there was no real way to avoid it. And if you had a company, of course, you know, a lot of companies, there's a CRS and FACA for dummies, where they tell you these are the loopholes in the law. And I mean, those pages are very, very thick. It calls for a lot of reading, but that's the way you understand how does my customer keep their money here and pay the least bit of fees, right? You have to be a very technically savvy banker and know the laws of the country that the client is from, as well as the laws from the Bahamas, in order to avoid and not evade. And like I said, by the end of this class, we'll know the difference between avoiding and evading. Okay, so during that repatriation period, you know, I was at Royal Bank and the entire private banking department closed down. I think we went from, say, some 800 accounts to 50, and then we just sent those 50 accounts to the retail side. And they were more so, you know, local Bahamians or people who had lived here already and were resident in the Bahamas who kept their money. Everybody else said, you know, it just makes no sense. If I have to pay my country this 30%, I'm not going to pay you $10,000, you know, so I'm just going to close out my account. So we lost, like I said, because of regulation being so expensive, and this was one of the regulations. Switzerland had 250 banks and trust companies. They now are 50, so they lost 200. That's 200 banks and trust companies could not survive because they lost the customers, and then implementing the compliance systems were just too expensive. Okay, and so that's why you see a big retraction in the amount of banks they just shut down. Okay, because of we lost a very big book of business from all these countries, and we were now tasked administratively with filing all this information to these various countries. And so, of course, banks don't want to pay for somebody new, and they didn't know the magnitude of CRS and FACA and what it would take. So where did it fall? On the compliance department. So here it is. Ms. Bullitt didn't know anything about taxes back in 2017, being sent to 1 or 2 seminars to understand how to do CRS and FACA and submit all this information to the competent authority. And so our competent authority in the Bahamas for taxes is the Compliance Commission. Okay, and there are 2 types of models. There's a model 1 jurisdiction where you send that information directly to the competent authority, and the competent authority then sends it on to France, then on to the US, and then on to Switzerland. And then there's a model 2 jurisdiction like Switzerland where they deal directly with the country. So if you make a mistake, the IRS in the US will call you directly, or the IRS or the competent authority in Switzerland will call you directly. Okay, and so there are different rules for the type of jurisdiction that you're in. Bahamas is model 1. Countries like Switzerland a model too. Okay, is this clear so far? Y'all are very, very quiet. Y'all there?
It is.
Yeah,
Yes, it
please.
is.
Okay. Okay, so that's just a bit of the history on how it started. Okay, so now US no longer borrowing the bulk of the money that they need from China. Okay, and of course, when you borrow money, you become master to the person, to the lender. So that's what Obama tried to avoid. Okay, and so the book goes on to talk about avoidance versus evasion. Okay, and like I said, you have to be a very savvy banker. You have to know the laws of the country of the client as well as the Bahamas to avoid. If you evade, you go to jail. If you avoid, that's legal and you don't go to jail. But if you evade, then you go to jail. Okay, so let me just give you a local example so we can understand the difference between avoidance and evasion. The bankers who know how to avoid, they stay in business, they keep their customers, and them nor their customers go to jail. But the bankers who just say, man, don't worry about that law, we can lie or we can find a workaround, yeah, they end up going to jail. So when we come to the airport, after we done shop in Miami, and we have 10 suitcases that nobody can lift, and we walk up to the customs officer and we say, I spent $500. And we sign that on our sheet. What are we doing? Are we avoiding or are we evading? All of us is doing. Owen, when last you been in Miami, Owen?
Avoiding, that's avoiding.
No, Owen.
We
Owen is doing-
evaded.
Evaded,
That's
we evaded
being
because we
smart.
find a way to avoid the system.
Ah, any Bahamian woman or man ever been away and spent $500?
No,
All
never.
we said, and that's what I
Yeah,
stick in
I
business
have.
bullet.
I've spent less.
Y'all recorded they spent $500 or less.
Okay, every time, right? Yeah, so when we walk to customs with our 10 pieces of luggage, we are evading. Okay, we are evading taxes and we are liable and could go to jail. Hence, they now have an automatic system to stop all this evasion that's going on. And so Caesar could get what is due to him, right? How do we avoid? When we go to Miami and shop, there are some duty-free items. And so we can separate the duty-free items from the items that have duty on it. And that's how we avoid. How do we avoid? A washer and dryer set that's energy efficient is 5% duty. A washer and dryer set that is regular and not energy efficient is 45% or 25%. Okay, that's avoiding. We will pay the extra $50 in Miami for the energy efficient, and that's a way to avoid a tax. Okay, unassembled furniture is 5%. Assembled furniture is 45%. That's how we avoid. We buy the unassembled furniture, and when it comes to Nassau, we hire somebody, pay them $30 to put the bed together. Okay, so do we understand the difference between avoidance and evasion? Evasion is, I buy a car for $10,000, but it match. So just put that the market value is 5. Evasion. Anytime you have to lie or manipulate something, you evade. If you say this energy efficient, I can spend $5 more. Avoidance. Understand? Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Understood. Yes.
Okay. So a very popular singer, Shakira, she performed at the Super Bowl a year or so ago. She has a house on Paradise Island. She was on trial in Spain because she said that I'm a Bahamian resident and I spend most of my time in Bahamas. So the law allows you 183 days. So 160 days is 6 months, of course. They allow you 3 extra days. And wherever you spend 183 days of the year, that's where they consider your resident. So you could have a house in Bahamas, in Switzerland, in Spain, wherever, but you are a resident wherever you spend most of your time, because you're driving on the road. If you have to go to the hospital, you go in the hospital in that country. If your children go into public school, you go into public school in that country, right? And so therefore you are liable to pay some tax. So what they do is call a residency test, and they test the amount of days that you are in that country. So of course, nobody wants to pay this tax, because a lot of rich people feel that the government is thieves. They don't put the money into the consolidated fund that helps the country. They just, spend it lavishly on their lifestyle. So rich people don't like insurance, and they don't like to pay taxes. And so of course they go with the cheapest jurisdiction. Oh, there's no tax in Bahamas, so I'm from the Bahamas, right? And in the financial institution, we're required to know our customer, and so we have to verify this. So did Shakira really spend the 183 days in Bahamas, or did she spend that in Spain? And so the IRS in Spain went on an investigation and said, hey, there was no way Shakira could have spent this time in the Bahamas, because she was on tour, and most of her tour was throughout Spain. And so therefore she is liable to Spain to pay taxes. And after the investigation, she was charged for tax evasion to Spain, because she had lied and said she had spent the time in Bahamas, and when they did the residency test, they found that she had spent more than 183 days in Spain. So then she was liable to pay taxes in Spain. Okay. And like I say, her net worth is probably 20 or $30 million. So calculate 30% of that. Okay. And that's what went to the Spanish government. So you have to ensure that you, by avoiding, you would have left on the 180th day. By evading, you lie and say, I did. Okay. And so you could read, if you want a case that's applicable to the Bahamas on taxes, that's a very popular case with Shakira. Okay. Any questions so far on FACA, CRS? We understand the Model 1 and the Model 2. We understand evasion versus avoidance. And now when we get through customs, we know what we ought to do. Correct? Owen?
Yes, very clear, very clear.
Very clear. Okay, good. Good. So, of course, there are different types of taxation. There are sales and value-added tax. And America has that, we wait till tax break day in August, and we try and go and avoid that 7% tariff and excise tax. Of course, we import everything, so we familiar with that customs duty, we call it. Social Security tax, which is our NIB that we pay. Income tax is a tax on income. Withholding tax, with persons that invest in the stock market, each stock that they purchase or each security that they purchase has a withholding tax of 30 or 40%, depending on if it's the US market or the European market. And that withholding tax goes on interest, if they receive interest, on dividends, on salary, on what have you, and banks that collect that on behalf of the IRS sign up for something called, they are now a qualified intermediary to be able to collect on behalf of the US government. Okay, and so what they do is they collect that 30 or 40% every time they sell a security or they go into the market on behalf of customers. And so in order for them to collect that tax and document it properly, they there are certain forms that are filled out, and I'm trying to pull them up. And these 3 forms are called the W-8 Ben E, and they should be at the back of your book all the way to the back. They're at the back of mine, but again, I have an old version, but I have them on the screen. It's the W-8 Ben E, the W-8 Ben, and then the W-9, okay? And these are very, very popular multiple choice questions on the exam where persons always get confused between the 3. So please ensure that, listen, I even think the book has a misstep about the W-8s and 9s. So the W-Ben E that is on the screen, this is for non-US citizen, non-US entities, okay? So if you're from the Bahamas, if you're from Switzerland, anywhere outside of the US, and you're an entity, a corporation, a company, you sign a W-8 Ben E form, okay? And you can look right to the bottom. It says, do not use this form if you're a US entity or US citizen. Instead, use the W-9. So let's look at, let me see if I can move this back. There you go. Let's look at the W-9, okay? So if you are a US citizen or a US corporation, then this is the form that you fill out. Okay, are we good with the W-8 Ben E and the W-9?
Okay, perfect. With the W, so any country, once you're not a res, if you're a U.S. citizen, you will use the W-8 Ben form or W-9, right?
Okay, if you're a US citizen or a company,
okay,
you use the W-9. If
okay.
you're a foreign company to the US, you use the W-Ben E. And if you're a foreign individual, let's see, no, where are we? There you go, the WB. Okay, I have the W-9 twice, so W-8 Ben. If you're a foreign to the US individual, you use the W-8 Ben. So there are 3 forms. I mean, there are actually like 10 or 11 forms, but it just depends on the type of company you are. Okay? But for the purpose of the exam, W-8 Ben, non-US individuals or foreign individuals. W-8 Ben E. Foreign entities. And then W-9 US entities.
Ms. Bullard, I have a question, please.
Go ahead.
Morning, all. In the event that it's a non-U.S. entity and they're filing a W-8 Ben E, but their beneficial owners are American citizens and they have the U.S. and DC, they would fill out the W-9s, correct?
If the company is non-U.S., they would fill out the Ben E for the company, and then
So
they would fill out the 9s for the individual.
For the individuals, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. So again, it's a very complex system. You have, whoever is filing to the IRS your qualified intermediary information each April, you have to ensure that they know what they're doing, because you will be fined for sending in the wrong information. Okay, and with the organizations, we as financial institutions, we normally tell our clients we do not give tax advice. You can be sued for giving tax advice. If you don't have a tax lawyer on staff, you have to simply say, I can refer you to a tax lawyer, or you can get your own tax lawyer in your country, because each country is different. Each country has a different treaty. There are different categories for seniors or waivers, or there's all sorts of discounts because people don't want to pay 30%. So some people pay 15% because there's an agreement between France and the United States. And so this is very complex. And so you have to know what you're doing and make sure you do it properly. So when you come into the account, this is a part of your KYC package. Okay, either the institution has created their own FACA and CRS form, or they just use the US forms or the OECD forms. Like this is SBC, they created their own form, which is a carbon copy of the OECD form. Or all of these are HSBC forms. Okay, but the OECD has a form that you fill out or you create your own. Let me just tell you why companies create their own. If you look right here, it says revision date October 2021. If you have a securities arm and your customers are buying securities every day and these forms are not up to date, then you can get fined. Because a part of your filing every April is that you attest that all of my KYC is current. And the last date of this form says October 2017. They just changed this in October 2021, which is 5 months ago, correct? Did we go out to our customers 4 months ago and say, your W-8s are expired? These forms are good for 3 years. It's against the law for the customer to be operating in the market on an expired form. So October just passed. We all were working underpaid. Nobody going out to the customer and say, sign a new band form, and nobody even receive it. And like the lady just talked about that complex situation, I have a foreign company, but I have US citizens. So that's like 5 different forms that need to be completed. Everybody is sending their form. Customers don't be compliant. Once an account open, it's like blood to get any updated information from them unless you block their account. And the bank never wants to block their account, right? And then not only that on this form, they have to go and get tax advice to find out their Chapter 4 status. Which category do they fall in? Because depending on which category they fall in, there are different sections of this form that need to be filled out and signed. Okay, so like I said, it's very complex and you cannot take it lightly, and you cannot be operating in the market with an expired form. Okay, and I could bet you $1 million. You'll probably have this form expires every 3 years. You'll probably have forms 270 and 260 and 50 and 40, and people that have 214 forms. Okay, but now this has to be audited every 3 years. And one part of the audit is that, the forms are checked and you ensure that everybody who is in the market has an up-to-date form, that their Chapter 4 status is correct, and that the correct amount is being collected for their tax bracket that they fall in. Okay, and all of that is attached to withholding tax. That's how it works. Every security, I want 40% out of it. Send that to the IRS. These forms have to be filled out. They have to be checked. Okay, and that's how withholding tax works. And these are the forms that are to be filled out. And like I said, it gets a little bit complex, like any person acting as an intermediary, including a qualified intermediary, acting as a qualified derivative dealer, we sign a W-8 IMY. And then there's a W-8 ECI, so this is why, as bankers, of course, the client does not want to go out and pay a tax lawyer, but who's going to be liable? The bank doesn't have liability insurance if these forms are incorrect. Those tax lawyers have liability insurance if they give their customer the wrong information. And so your job is to ask them, did you fill this form out correctly, and make sure that they sign? Did your tax lawyer confirm this is the bracket you were supposed to be in for your country? Yes or no? And that's our responsibility. And like I say, you can give them basic information. You can have a list of approved tax lawyers that they can go to fill these out. But by all means, if you don't have a degree in tax law, do not advise a customer on how to fill this out and what is the correct way. Okay, and like I say, it always falls on compliance. They always come and ask, compliance, what's your view? I say, I'm not a tax lawyer. They have to get a tax lawyer. That's how complex it is. Okay, and so each bank should have a CRS. This is how the CRS form, those were the FACA forms. This is how the CRS form works. And they, you know, name, and if it's a company, then you have a controlling person in the company, the residents. And of course, this is very important. You have to get a copy. If their passport does not match the proof of address, then you have to delve a little bit deeper. How many days do you spend in the Bahamas? Because of course, when CRS and FACA came out, people did not only repatriate their money back to their country, they went and got residency in Bahamas, in Thailand, and the UAE, because the UAE is non-reciprocal. That means you could send us information, we're not going to send you none. Cayman is non-reciprocal. You could send us information, we're not going to send you none. The big bad US is non-reciprocal. Send us the information or you go to jail, and we're not sending you in. How is that allowed? Some of us are equal, but some are more equal than others, right? So that's how, you know, life works in these countries work, okay? So the US could collect all their money, but no other country must collect any money from any of their citizens that happen in the US. Okay, and then how is Cayman? All of this is imposed on Bahamians. Bahamians losing jobs and money, but Cayman is non-reciprocal. Who is protecting Cayman? Is Cayman still not a UK colony? So the rules are for the rest of the world. And of course, the UK have to, the Queen have to be prim and proper and say she's following the rules. But little old Cayman, that's still a US UK colony, don't have to do it. Trinidad, not Trinidad and Tobago. Who is our sister company, country? Y'all there or y'all asleep? Come. Let me see what
I'm trying to soak up the information.
Okay, so what our sister company, I forget, y'all help me.
Turks
And Caicos, right?
Yeah.
They don't have a central bank. They don't even have no framework. They blacklisted like Afghanistan. Isn't it still a British colony? So why is that still allowed?
How are they allowed to function without a central bank?
Ah, okay.
Sound like we need to invest in Turks.
Okay, man, because Cayman, we had to put in all this system. If the US spent 18 million, do you know how much we spent to establish the compliance commission? And we still hiring inspectors and all these different, putting systems in place to man all these banks, to put a system in that could, you know, liaise with all the various countries around the world to make sure they get their tax dollars.
Is Turks and Caicos under the FATF?
Yeah, they blacklisted as one of the non-compliant countries. If you look, there are about 7 countries: Afghanistan, Kuwait, I think, and yeah, go look right on the FATF site. Okay, so when customers come in, is important. Like I said, when FACA and CRS came out in the Bahamas to get residency, you spend $750,000 and you buy a house. It used to be $550,000, but now they increased it to $750,000. So these millionaires to come to the Bahamas to get residency, and they spend $750,000 because it's cheaper than paying taxes every year in their country. And so then they say they're a resident in Bahamas, and that's what Shakira did. However, she went on tour and they was able to confirm that you was on tour, miss. You wasn't in the Bahamas for the 183 days. And so then she got fined some $2 or $3 million for evading taxes. Okay, so if you work in the offshore world, when you see a passport that does not match with an address, and these very rich people, they have houses all around the world, you have to complete the residency test. Okay, and that's very difficult for us because we don't say, let me see the 5th and 6th pages of your immigration stamp in your passport. We don't ask for that. Okay, but we are required to know our customer. So the bank is gonna have to find a very savvy way to confirm. Are you truly resident in the Bahamas? Is that where you live? Or did you just go and buy this house? You know, so you can evade taxes. All right. And then of course, when they see us getting to that point, what they could do? Close up the account and go somewhere else where they don't ask so much questions. And in the offshore world, it's very, very competitive, very hard to get these big billion-dollar accounts. Okay, so there's all sorts of pressures. Tennille, go ahead.
Miss, but my question is, okay, since it's so expensive to implement these tax, not only tax, but financial system procedures and codes, why can't we just ask the persons like Europe and the US who want us to implement them, say, can y'all fund us some money since y'all want this information and it will not be reciprocated to us? Because it's for y'all beneficial use, not really ours.
Well, we asked who was going to fund if the IRS spent $18 million, our little Bahamas, we can't afford nowhere. We don't, you know, we only have VAT and customs duty, right? And now some type of corporate tax on the business license. Who could train our staff? That's billions of dollars just in training. They ain't had no money. They say each country had the, you know, they ain't donate no money to this. You had to do it, or you close down, and a lot of banks closed down. Okay, and so even like I said, anything that nobody else could do in the bank is called on compliance. So here it is, you have all these compliance professionals trying to learn how to do CRS and FACA, which makes them operational. Now we should know how to do it because we should make sure that it's being done and it's being done correct, but we should not be the person preparer. We should be the checker. And so with this instance, and many banks adopted the same thing, or let compliance do it. We have the checker checking the checker. Because if you preparing and you verifying and you checking, right? So we have to put this function in an operational capacity. But if you look in the newspaper, when they're advertising for compliance or risk officers, they say CRS and FACA, and not that you could just be the checker, that you complete this completely, carry out the entire function. Okay, so like I say, when there had to be a lot of training across these forms, very complex. And with the IRS forms, you go to jail. Okay, and the customers lie because the whole reason why they have their money in the Bahamas is to evade the tax. Okay, so there are millions and millions of issues across these forms. And when you delve deeper and you look closer, you will see. And at one point, okay, let's just say we open all the accounts in, we made everybody sign in 214 or 215, 216. Then the form has an expiry date, right? And so the only way to get outside of your expiry date is to create your own internal form, but the most you can put on that is a 10-year expiry date. So for the most part, a lot of the organizations use the W8s and W9s, but when it came to CRS, they created their own form and so put a 10-year, because going out to your 800 customers every 3 years is a task, okay? And you're constantly behind. And like I say, the only way to get these persons to sign an updated form is to block their accounts, and the bank don't support blocking no customer, because that means the customer will say, oh, I'm gonna close out my account. Okay, so you want to ensure that that doesn't happen. Okay, and so there's a big, you know, there are millions of dollars surrounded around tax evasion. And so each year in January, you are supposed to be going through these forms and making sure that they make sense and seeing who is reportable. Each year in May, the Compliance Commission will send out a list and to tell you which countries are reportable. And so in 2020 was the first time Switzerland had been reportable. And so all of their forms were incorrect. So I spent from January to May trying to fix all the Swiss forms and get everybody to fill them out. And if you have a trust company or trust accounts, then you have to ask the person, did you receive a distribution this year? And so the customer stalled. And the day before reporting said, yes, I received the distribution. You go to the trustee, then you have the trustee sign, and then you have the customer sign. So it's very, like I said, very tedious and complex process. And then you have to find out what amount they got distributed to them, and they will be taxed on that amount. Okay, so like I said, it's a very complex system, but as you know, as you practice it, you get used to it, and you, at least at minimum as a compliance professional, you need to understand. If you're going to be the checker, then you have to delve a little deeper and get full training on it. Okay. At one point, Panama was not reportable. Now they are. And so we had to update all the Panamanian forms and find out who the controlling person is and whether they were controlling by ownership or by other means, or whether they were a senior official. And again, like I said, a lot of people, they are going to put, oh, Ms. Bullitt is my CEO. I will put her as the controlling person of my company because she's a Bahamian and she won't be liable. Okay, and that may be right. However, you have to ensure that nobody else is liable or the company is. You know, when you accept that form, you have to ensure that that company, just like the lady said, this is a foreign company, but we have US individuals. Am I giving them the correct form? Did they get tax advice? And what are the rules for each country? Okay, so you do that check in January, and then the portal opens for 1 month. And when that portal is open, that 1 month, then you report. Okay? And you report not only for people, for the companies, you report their gross profit, the net profit, any interest, any dividends, all of that information. And again, you would have to liaise with the accounts department to find out exactly, you know, for the year prior, 2020, 2021, what was their interest, what was their dividend, what was their income. And there are about 7 categories that you have to fill out. And then the 10 numbers were another problem. Most persons say, oh, I'm from the Bahamas, no 10, right? So the OECD has a list to say that confirms you have to go and check. There was one person out of China. I had one form that had a 10 and the next one, and the one from China insisted that they didn't have a PIN, a 10 number. And so I could not post that person and tell in the end, again, if you don't start from January, you may think July is far away, but the time runs up on you. And yeah, you could miss the deadline. And of course, if you miss the deadline, then your company is fine. Okay, and so all of that would fall under your customer due diligence and what you do, your checks and balances, finding out how many days Shakira spent wherever she was, and to ensure that you post the right thing so nobody is evading. Okay, And again, like I say, if you work in the sales department, or I mean, because all of us in our institutions are required to open up accounts, bring in new business. In order for you to bring in new business, you have to make sure that it's not going to cost the customer, or retain the business is not going to cost the customer more than it'll cost in their country. Else then they won't even bother with you, or they won't keep the account open. So, like I say, there's a CRS and FACA loopholes for dummies. There is a waiver that says if you're a company but you're a managed company, that managed company is responsible for reporting CRS and FACA. However, if that managed company is a broker dealer, there's no requirement to report. So then you saw a bunch of management companies signing up with broker dealers who did not have reporting, and that's, so they say that I'm a self-reporting, when they fill out the category, I'm a self-reporting company. I'm an active NFE or central bank, international organization, the United Nations, active other than the first two examples, or passive. Okay, so it just depends on what category you fall in, whether you are liable, to report. And again, if you're a central bank, they're not required, because the probability of them evading taxes as a central bank is very low, right? An international organization, like the United Nations or any top tier government agency, the probability of them evading taxes is very low, so we don't need to include them. You already have 800 people or accounts to report, so you just eliminate some of these persons, okay? But if you're a passive NFE, and again, it tells you who, the definitions of what an active NFE is, what an account holder is, who the controlling person is. The form gives you all of that. And persons are still confused, or persons know that this is going to cost them a lot of money, and so they try their best to put in a country that is either non-reciprocal or do not have income tax. So you would see where they say, I'm resident in Bahamas, no TINs for Bahamas, or I'm resident in China, this is the TIN number, and that's it. And again, for these major companies, it's very complex, because you have some people, you may have one person from China, so you report them to China, another person from the US, so you report them to the US, another person from Switzerland, so you report them to Switzerland, so, and the company registered in the BVI. Yeah, so it's very, very complex when you get into corporations. Okay, but like I say, it comes with practice. It got easier. I'm now, I was mad at first, but I'm thankful that I did do the operational part of it. And so I fully understand how it works. I fully understand that the rules change each year, and so you have to keep abreast of the new rules and what is required. There are systems, like once you're a bank, you get a GIN number, and you post all these things to FACA under your GIN number. And in the OECD as well, ask for the GIN number. The system and the Compliance Commission is similar now to the ORM system at Central Bank. And so if you see in one, you see in all of them. And it's user friendly and easy to put the information in the system. However, the compiling it is where it's very tedious, and it takes a lot of work. Okay, so we should understand, have an overview of what FACA and CRS is. We should know what a corporate tax, what VAT is, with withholding, estate taxes. We should understand residency, and we have an example and a case that if they ask us the difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion, we should be able to explain it. You should know what qualified intermediary is and how it's attached to withholding tax. You know that there are forms and QI rules that you follow. We should know the W8, the W9, the W-Benny. And we have a example where I said this, the bottom of page 16 talks about criminal liability for laundering and tax evasion, and that it's a predicate crime, one of the 21 crimes under money laundering. We should know that tax avoidance is legal, but tax evasion is illegal. And the due diligence that has to be done before reporting each year, because 10 numbers are wrong, persons may have moved, there may be a change of circumstance, we don't have enough information to do residency tests, or there's another test called a reasonableness test. There's a CRS and FACA for dummies that if we want to be savvy, we have to know how to avoid the law and not evade it to stay in business and generate new business for our clients. Any questions?
Okay, we didn't talk about income tax though, eh?
What about income tax?
I mean that I
The tax on your income.
okay, that's something totally different from the corporate and all that kind of stuff. Okay.
Yeah, but corporate tax is like a business license tax. And we are being threatened to be blacklisted, even though we do have a business license. Like if you make under a certain amount, you don't pay anything. But if you make over $100,000, I think you pay a percentage. And the international regulators are still not satisfied with that. They're saying that we should have a stronger corporate tax structure in place. So I don't exactly know what they want, but we are being threatened to be blacklisted until we have a corporate tax in place. So,
but to add to that, right? We do have a corporate tax because companies will pay, say if they made their revenues over 100,000, they pay VAT. But if they make over 300,000, they pay a corporate tax on their returns. So we do have corporate tax, so to speak.
Right, I agree, but internationally, they're saying that it's not sufficient. Remember now, if you don't have a seat at the table, they make decisions based on their needs. Bahamas is in competition. You know, Switzerland lost 200 accounts, but some of them did not only repatriate home, but they came to the Bahamas. And so they don't want us to be more competitive than they are. So we have to ensure that, you know, the rules that they're putting in place that are not just to harm us or for competitive reasons. In the Caribbean, we have the lowest tax rates as well in terms of VAT and I don't want to say, let me just say VAT. And so it's us in Trinidad. And so we are having pressure now to raise VAT. And I really don't know what the government was doing on the campaign trail talking about they reduce VAT, because internationally there's no way. And that's why you see what he said, oh, I can waive VAT for a year. How can you waive VAT for a year when they say we have to stop borrowing, when we just come out of a pandemic? And this really the only way the Bahamas making the money, because the 8 people getting the national lottery money and one family getting the natural resources money. So the only money that the country making, and they still have to borrow. How possible? And that's why he rearranged it, because internationally the pressure is there to raise VAT. And I think VAT is gonna, our grandchildren to be paying for this, even though it ain't even, I don't even understand what they did, because it don't make no sense. If 42% of the people were using bread basket items, how are you giving us something if you now tax the bread back? You like basically wipe out the poor people, the little eating that they used to get. I mean, the little, I don't know how to explain it. Felicia, you want to say something?
Wouldn't it be then the fair and simple
Sorry, Felicia, we lost you.
implement an income tax, because everyone has to use some simple, because I realize the wealthy don't pay VAT. Like, so it's, if they import their goods and let's say they bring it through a private flight or a private yacht and customs isn't able to board it unless they're being invited and they could bring in their groceries, they're not paying the over the hill VAT. So why can't it be that we just have a simple, clear, fair, across the board salary tax, and then everybody gets taxed equally? If I make $1,000 and you make $100,000, we still feel 10% the same way.
Right. But again, like I say, the wealthy always put pressure on the government, and the governments, especially our governments, try to protect them and do what they say. So until they find a workaround, the poor people will always be affected. Okay. Like I said, we are doing something drastically wrong here in the Bahamas, because every opportunity we have to make money, we give it away. Okay, like I said, we gave away the number business to 8% when Florida has a national lottery. Each state has a national lottery. We got to copy and things that don't make sense, but when it comes to making sense, we don't make sense. The only way, one of the major ways to make money for a country is the taxation. Okay, Canada, we are a transit country from Haiti, from Jamaica, from all over. We can't protect our borders, right? Canada are calling for persons, because the more people you have in a country, the more tax. In fact, we only have 400,000 people. That isn't sufficient to cover the expenses of the country. And so we need immigrants to come in and help us. But the immigrants that are coming in ain't helping us, because we allow them to build shanty towns. They go to school for free, and they go to the hospitals for free, and nobody is being taxed. And so when you go to Canada, everybody can move to Canada. My friend moved to Canada. She makes $250,000, but $82,000 out of that goes to the government, because her tax bracket as a foreigner is higher. Okay, she's still out of win, because she's making $150,000. She ain't gonna make that home, right? But $82,000 goes to the government. And like I said, we are good at copying when things don't make sense. If we can't control our borders, like you say, tax everybody, stop the shanty towns, stop the illegal electricity, stop the illegal water, and tax the people in this country that make billions of dollars, because we have a lot of immigrants, which we need to help the company, survive. And so Canada knows that, and that's why they say, come, we will regularize you. But no, what we doing? And we will give you a job, and you will work, and then we will get our big 80,000 of just salary in our country. We don't have to borrow. The Bahamas can't see that. They spending all the money on the defense force, sending all the, and these people that come there and they see. But we just don't have it established where we set it up so everybody is taxed in the country can survive, and we can stop all this borrowing. And I don't have a problem paying tax if every 5 minutes, you drive and there's an pothole. And I don't have to sleep for 2 days at Princess Margaret Hospital before I'm saved. And I don't have to fear that my children get shot in the government school system or starve. Okay, so we need more ethical people in the government that don't even keep talking about the money in the the consolidated fund and where the VAT money going. And then we won't have to borrow. It's as simple as that. It's being done right now. Stop spending all this money on the defense force. Stop spending all this money on the detention center and repatriation. Beef up water and sewage and BPL and Ministry of Works. Give them jobs, make them work and tax all of us. And you see the difference? Build a new hospital, have security in the school.
Ms. Buller, I had another question, please.
Yes.
Just in reference to the value-added tax, and I wanted to know, we were having an argument at work just the other day saying that we pay VAT in triplicate, and I wanted to confirm if it is in fact that we do. If, for example, Thompson Trading, just as an example, let's say they purchase something wholesale and they pay the duty on and whatever, and they pay VAT on the goods. Do they pay VAT on the imported goods? Yes, they do,
Yes.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so they pay, let's say they pay the 10% now, fine. They then in turn, Thompson Trading now has it in the store. So the consumer, let's say a smaller food store buys something from them and they put it in their store. So they now are fine. They have tax on that item as well, correct?
Correct.
So then the consumer now goes to the mom and pop shop and pays tax on that item as well. But I'm saying as well because even though they're filing the taxes, won't entities get some sort of return for filing their taxes on time as an incentive from the government?
Not that I am aware of.
So if
the tax lies with the consumer, the final person who gets the good. These persons are just collecting this money on behalf of the government, So essentially, Thompson Trading paid it. The second person that bought it paid Thompson Trading back. The third person that bought it paid the second person back, and the last person will pay the government because they collected it from the consumer.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but that's the only way countries make money. Okay, so the defense force don't wait. All these ships, would they keep throwing into the walls and breaking up? We are a transit country. We have a big immigration problem. But so does Canada. And their borders open every day and they welcome and calling for citizens. Because you really need more than 400,000 persons to run a country. So we need, and 200 or the 400,000 is children. Right? And so those 200,000 persons who are in the workforce, that ain't enough to run a country. And so we need at least another 200,000 in the workforce who are taxed, and then you'll see less borrowing. And like I said, we good at copying, but when it makes sense, we just don't do it. All these out islands with all this push, put the people there, create some jobs. It just makes no sense. Fix these systems that have been clogged up for years. And like I said, we have 3 and 4 generations of the same nonsense in our governments. I don't understand it. We still don't have lobbyists. We still don't have people. These people will not put the money where it's supposed to go if nobody's watching. That's what audits are for. And you can't have the auditors that influenced by the government. And I have a friend that works at the Auditor General's Department. She said the audits are up to the roof. That proves these people just blatantly stole and nothing is done. Okay, so you need an outside independent body to hold these people to the fire or to the flame, to be outraged at the PLP for this nonsense with VAT. From on the campaign trail, when they said that somebody should have been speaking out and saying, this is ludicrous. Absolutely not. Do not lie to the Bahamian people. There's no way possible you could do this. when internationally they want us to increase taxes now, so we are not more competitive in the Caribbean. Because anybody with sense, the people in Barbados, when they implemented income tax, we had a whole bunch of expats just leave Barbados. They said, oh my God, I left the UK to go work to Barbados. Now they have an income tax. I got to go to Cayman or Bahamas. And they packed up and I'm not going to pay that. Okay, so they don't want us to be more competitive than them. And so because we are part of all these groups and we need so much help, and we can't tell them no. We have to say our plan is by 2025, we can raise the tax to 15%. Okay, but the country is in the deficit, and the only way they make money. See, Lincoln Bain should have never, ever gone, start no political party. No, you need to be a lobbyist. Make some change first, accomplish something first. You're going from I'm an activist to I want to be the prime minister in 6 months. So did Reynard Rigby.
But Rigby was never a politician.
Okay, he was an activist.
No, you mean Henfield, I think.
Henfield, sorry, yeah, Henfield, Reynard Henfield. And so now who holding their foot to the fire? Even the loudmouth woman, was she named? Maria Daxon. She won't be the deputy prime minister in 6 months, and you won't accomplish nothing for the country yet. No, get the natural resources back where it's supposed to be. Not wait till we give you the position, advocate for it. Build something out of nothing. I'll vote for Bishop Lawrence Gould, who built a feeding ministry and get donations. I'll vote for Walter Hanschel. They made something out of nothing. And without the education too. Okay, so we need lobbyists. We need to get rid of this generations of foolishness, 40 years that had the system clog up. And we need ethical persons in these positions that when the money is collected, it goes in the right place. I start talking about the consolidated fund. That just drives me crazy every time I hear it. As if we don't have accountants on board that account for every single dollar that's collected. Okay, so questions? We understand. Oh, and what is FACA?
FACA? Oh boy. Isn't
Somebody
that
help them?
Yeah, somebody help me.
Foreign account tax compliance. A FACA, you say FACA, right? Uh-huh.
And where who we pay that to? England? Cayman? Luxembourg? Who we pay that to? Who's at the tax system for?
The US.
US.
Okay. And what tax system fall under the OECD?
CRS.
What is CRS?
Common Reporting Standards.
Okay, and what countries we framework that falls under?
Caribbean.
I know Switzerland is one.
Yeah.
The EU?
Yep. So every other reporting country in the world, yeah. Switzerland, the EU, or the Caribbean countries, whoever, reports. So FACA is for the US, CRS is for the rest of the world. What is the W-9?
That's what the US entities would fill out for their tax.
Not only entities.
Corporations and persons, individuals as well.
Yes, it's the W-9. The W-8 band?
That's for all foreign entities of the US. And I guess a complex example was given, whereas they are beneficial owners, if they are of another country, they would have to fill out the W-8 bans, and if they are current
Individuals.
citizens of that country, the
It's the
W-9.
following number 9. Okay.
Okay,
Miss.
you confuse us just now. Who's the W8 band for?
The W-8 is for
W-8
persons
bans for
outside of the
US
country.
citizens and
No, you can't speak over people.
Oh, Miss Bill, you was talking to me or Owen?
I talking to everybody, anybody who answer.
It's non-US for any foreign entity for the W8 band E.
Yes.
Right.
And what is the
And
W8
And
band?
the 8 is
US
for non-US or foreign individuals.
Okay, correct.
I have a question. The W8 Benny, the W8 is the same as the W8 Ben.
No, the E on the end is for
It's for the
entities.
non-citizens, the
No,
non-US
no.
entities.
Entities, the E on the end is for non-US entities.
Entities.
W8 ban is for non-US individuals.
Individuals. So because I
Yes.
see I'm looking at the course outline here on the classwork for 2022. It does have W8. I just wanted to make sure it's the same thing.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, we just put W8.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you see that E on the end, that's for
Then I know that's the non-US entities. The E for entities. That's how you look at it, the E for entities.
entities. Correct,
Okay.
correct. Okay, and what is withholding tax?
It's applied to certain type of income tax, like dividends and securities when you're making investments,
Okay.
the amount that they withhold and tax you on.
And how often do those forms expire?
3 years.
Yeah.
The W8s are 3 years, and I think the CRS is annually, eh?
Well, it depends on your institution. If your institution use the OECD form, it should be 3 years. If they
Okay.
made their own form, then it's 10 years. And many institutions make their own form because, you know, getting due diligence and KYC from customers is a tedious process. So
Oh, no,
they
but
try to
sorry,
get.
clarification, if there is a change of circumstance, or let's say, for example, the VOA is now expired, we are, for our KYC protocol, we normally get updates from them annually, no?
Okay, if that, when you're doing a client review and they're high risk, yeah, annually. If
Okay.
they're medium, every 2 years, if low, every 3 years.
Is there a general time frame for VOAs?
What is a BOA?
Verification, like when it's like to
Sorry,
me.
you breaking up, I didn't hear you.
Sorry, the VOA stands for verification of address. So I mean, I'm trying to apply it to my institution. Every year, we normally ask our clients to confirm that their VOAs would be like a utility bill, or
That's
I
your
think
policy.
Oh, they supposed to expire every 6 months. But
Every
we
6
don't get our updates. I mean,
That's your policy.
yeah, that's your personal policy. So every 6 months they expire, but only at review time, and the review time is attached to your risk rating. So if you're high risk, then when we call you on the phone, we confirm that you still live in the United States at this address.
Oh,
Like
okay.
that's what we do.
Miss
And
Bullet,
then-
just for the standard, I guess, the standard year or time period, can we go with that again versus the everyone's personal, I guess, inter-house standard?
What do you mean standard
Like
year?
the
What do you mean?
years, yeah, the standard years.
Okay.
Across the
The
board.
only form that has a expiry date that could send you to jail is the WH, the US forms, the US FACA forms. Okay, you can create your own internal. It depends on the organization. But if you don't create your own internal and you use the W8, W9s, they expire every 3 years. And if your client is in the securities, in the market, you can go to jail for allowing your client to invest on an expired form. Okay, but what I'm saying is, if audit comes in and sees that your forms are 10 years or older, they can write you up because the laws would have changed in the last 10 years. And each form should be reviewed, but each form, like Royal Bank had 42 account opening forms. So they put an expiry date. Once they updated them, we can check these again in 10 years, unless a law specifically changed, and then we'll do an update. But it's very tedious to go to your customer and get updated forms. Okay, so when passport expires and proof of address expires, we wait until the review date, which is attached to your risk rating. So if you high risk, every year, we ask you for an update. If you low, every 3 years. Okay, is that clear? And then, like I say, different institutions have their own policy because some institutions are high risk and some are low. Some have had incidences of fraud, and so they are on increased control. So it just depends on, this is why they say you use a risk-based approach according to the profile of the company that you work for. If you work in a Canadian bank, you will see that Canadian banks are more conservative. And so they are lower risk because they don't take on Venezuela, they don't take on Russia. Okay, the Swiss banks take on Russia and Iran even, and Venezuela. Very high risk. So those compliance officers working very hard right now dealing with Russia, watching the sanctions every day, making sure that they don't submit any wires that are against the law. Okay, and like I said, I had a client out of, where was it, where the bombings happened, where it was the gas that exploded. Lebanon. Yeah. Remember, I had to pay children's school fees and house insurance in Spanish Wales, Bahamas, and that was blocked. His residence was Spanish Wales, Bahamas, but his passport was from Lebanon. And they blocked that, and they did not allow that transaction to go through. So I don't know if any of you work in offshore right now and in a Swiss bank, because I'm sure the Canadian banks, I don't think they deal with Russia at all. So that's a breath of fresh air. But if you work in one of the Swiss banks and you deal with Russia, I can tell you that you're on pins and needles. Like I said, a few years ago, when I was paying Russian salaries, I was told that they no longer do business with countries that had a CPI index lower than 30. And I think Russia's CPI indexes was 18 at the time. It probably lower even now. So you have to be sure that no sanction is imposed and you're following the law. Okay, and like I say, back in the day before 2018, these sanctions never changed. They were very stagnant for many years. But after Donald Trump, he started talking to Putin and Jung Hoon King or whatever the North Korean man named, then they started to fluctuate. CPI is the Corruption Perception Index. Okay, so not only does a country have a risk rating, a country has a Corruption Perception Index. And it's from 100 to 0, and anything below 45 for the CPI is considered high risk. And then you find that correspondent banks say we don't even do business with countries that CPI is less than 30. Okay, and like I say, it fluctuates because of course countries are putting in policy and procedure and frameworks to fix their system so that their CPI would increase and that their risk rating would decrease, and so that they are not blacklisted. Okay, so are the taxes a little bit clearer? Do we?
Much
Do you
clearer.
understand? Much clearer? Okay. Okay, and like I say, it's all about you keeping your money offshore, you still have to pay the taxes to your country. Okay, and we know that there are Bahamians all over the world, right? But we don't have that tax framework, that income tax framework.
You think we'll get income tax within the next 5 to 10 years?
Perhaps I think by 2025, we're gonna have the international pressure and we're gonna have to. So it doesn't matter, a lot of, I saw ministers try to use that I'm not gonna use, raise VAT in his, those years that he was prime minister, because I think they have until 2024, 2025. Definitely by then, it'll have to increase to 15%. Where else we getting the money from? Do you foresee the natural resources kicking in? I don't.
Yeah, we collect more money for that Aragonite.
Right, and so billions of dollars go into one family. Why? You had Lincoln since the election over, talk about it?
No, we didn't.
Okay. But yeah, he should have been prime minister. Okay, so Owen, start one party, please. Ms. Political support you. I don't like the limelight. Every good politician needs 3 strong people behind them. I can do the leg work. You
I behind y'all too. I behind y'all too. We might as well start a party.
Yeah, let's do something. Let's do something, and it can't be that we go in 6 months either. Let's make something out of nothing. Let's be like with Bishop Lawrence Rule and like Walter Hanchel, make something out of nothing. That's how you build the community first. And I'm really happy with Shannon Doe Cartwright and with Michael Pintard. I really hope they go far, because they are 2 that are heavily involved in their community. They are very present, and you see them even though the election is over. Okay, and so I really do hope that they go far. Leslie seems to be very involved as well, but the Leslie Miller syndrome, I don't think she could bypass that. To me, that's the same old training for block of the system for 40 years. I don't know, but we'll see. Yeah, and that's all you need is some dedicated individuals who willing to learn, and when they see issues, fix it and listen. But like I say, for years, if we look at Monaco, is either Monaco or Morocco, their citizens get $3,000 a month, and they get free electricity. And BPL talking about raising electricity. I really want to find out who behind BPL, because everybody is saying it's ludicrous, where we have 90% of sunshine out of the 365 days of the year, we paying for gas and not solar. We ain't done invest in solar. Okay, these are the things that need to be fixed. On the electricity bill for years, we've been asking, what is this energy surcharge foolishness? What is that about? But yet we still have this energy surcharge for the last 80 years. These things need to fix. And like I say, the people who just raising up their children, you help clog up the system, because both sides of the government was ineffective. Okay, so we really need some. Let's see if we could get a lobbyist group going, because without that, and if the lobbyist group is established, then we could move on to being the government. But we can't just do it for 6 months and then run for the office. And if we don't win, you never hear from us again. Okay. Again, like Ms. Bully, just like everybody else, we just talk. We sound good. We talk for hours. Right, Owen?
You don't talk much for an hour, though. I must say, at least you're making sense.
But I mean, I only make sense when we get this done. There's no use we sit down and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and no action. So we need some action. I saw one person up in this election, one lady that took this class, and I was very, very proud. Very proud. So I gotta call her up and ask her how I can support her. Then she took the plunge. Okay, and there's a seminar now going on through the US Embassy. I think I told you all this last week of if anybody is interested in for women in politics to start a training for you because you know they did the statistics on women and how women are intimidated and how the men is treat you, and so it's like a support group. And I think it's going on right now. If anybody is interested, it's on the US Embassy's website. Women in Politics seminar, if anybody is interested. And not that you want to take the plunge now, but you know, get your feedback, get some awareness, see what they talk about, you know, and what the next step. So I encourage you to, you know, if you're interested. Owen, you send out any invites to the group so we don't all go to Toastmasters and Rotary together and one person.
The invite was placed in the chat group. I don't think we had no attendance this week though. I stand to be corrected.
Okay, but you did send out the invite.
In the group, yeah, at least for Rotary Toastmasters, I didn't get it sent out to Toastmasters one.
Okay, but thank you, Owen, for being diligent. So let's send out the invites, and when persons are available, you know, hopefully they'll attend. And I don't want everybody on the last day and in the review class say we have 50 people one time. So please, we are already in the second week. These weeks are gonna go very fast. And let me see, it's 14 of you here. So next week, I want at least 2 persons to say that we have attended and this is what we've learned and how we found it beneficial. Okay, can I have at least 2 persons for next week who you know, the end of the month is gone, and so you may have some free time next week, and Owen is gonna, and anybody else in the group who has an invite can share with the group. Anybody out there?
I'll make an effort to make an attendance.
And so would I.
Okay,
I'll
great.
be there.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, good. So Winika, homework, she got read that online gambling and come tell us how when we go to Island Luck we can be protected to make sure nobody uses us for money laundering. So very good. Okay, any other questions or concerns anybody else wants to share?
Yes, ma'am. I like could you explain the homework to me, please?
Which homework?
Is it like what you did in introduction to AML when we had to write the essays and they was due throughout the week and we could pick one?
Yes. Did you listen to class 1?
Class one. I don't know what's wrong with my laptop, but it keeps saying I'm not allowed on YouTube with my jurisdiction or something like that.
Okay, so call Miguel and ask Miguel to walk you through it. Okay,
Okay.
so you listen to class 1 and you'll get all the details. So it's a little bit more complex to ensure that you understand.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, good. Good. Somebody give me an example of tax avoidance. Let me see who I have from today. Let me start calling some names. Let me look. Lee Barnaby, Lee Antoinette, I hear from you today. No response. Let me mark Lee Anthony Barnaby absent. Justine, that's your 10% for being absent. Absent. Justine, absent.
Yeah. Hello?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. I'm here. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
so
I'm feeling
give me an example of, see, I don't forget now, of tax avoidance. But hold on, Alcatel 1X. Please identify yourself. Okay, Alcatel 1X absent.
Hold on.
Sorry,
Miss
what's your
Paulette, are
name?
you able to see Donna on
Okay,
your
that's okay, Donna. Yeah, we spoke last week. Okay, so Donna, you get a little break this week. I talked to Donna last week. Okay, Donna. OG, who's
yeah, and this
OG?
week I do have in the 100%
Oh dear.
helpful. Mhm.
Odia?
That's yes, ma'am.
Okay, Odia. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Okay, bye. I don't know you, Odia.
I'm not sure.
I should know
I'm
you.
here though.
Okay, good. So
Hopefully
you,
you'll get to.
okay, great. Okay, so you give us Justine is gonna give us a tax avoidance example. You are going to give us a tax evasion example. Okay?
No problem.
Okay, let me see who else. Nicole, you there? Okay, Nicole absent.
I'm here.
Okay, Nicole, I hear from you today.
I'm sure.
You want sure? Okay, so you give us another tax evasion example. Okay, good. All right, very good. Justine, go ahead. Give us an example of tax avoidance. Ask your classmates for help if you need help.
Yes, I need help because like I said, I wasn't feeling well. So I think I missed that part. I think I got tax evasion.
Tax avoidance would be whereas you look at ways that you can cut the cost. So you gave examples of you can purchase energy efficient appliances that would have a lower tax rate, or you can buy a hybrid vehicle that has a lower tax rate, which may be 10 or 15% compared to 45 or 60%. So you're avoiding taxes by paying a lower amount as opposed to the higher end, and evading and lying. So evading, the easiest way to remember evasion is relying on documents, not telling the truth or full disclosure.
Okay, very, very good, very good. And again, this is a very easy question on the exam. You say what tax evasion is, you say what tax avoidance is, and you give an example. Very, very easy, 10 points. And most persons, I almost have a 99%, persons answering this question. Okay, so very good. Okay, Nicole. Thank you so much, OG. Nicole gone? Okay. All right. Well, Odessa.
No, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm here. Which one you want me to answer?
Tax evasion. Give us an example.
So tax evasion would be similar. Well, like she said, it's more than legal when you're trying to avoid having to pay the correct amount of tax on some sort of income. So I guess like a local example for us, an everyday example would be coming to customs when we try to say that we have only $200 worth of good in our bags, but we have 1,000, so that we don't want to pay, the duty or whatever that we've got to pay. As it relates to companies, a tax evasion would be understating income that we need to report for VAT, so that we wouldn't have to pay as much on the monthly VAT return that we file.
Okay, right, very, very good. So again, you can practice this by writing it out and make sure that you can explain it properly, because sometimes persons get confused between the two when they're writing it. And like I said, there are numerous persons that have been brought before the courts. You don't necessarily have to use a Bahamian or Bahamas example, but just have an example of how to avoid and how to evade, or one case on evasion, and you should get full 10 points. Okay, go ahead, Jasmine.
I have a question. I can wait till you finish with the persons you already asked to answer questions.
That was it. I was finished.
Okay, okay, so we went through everything. I can back up my notes, and I don't have anything written under the section 319 of the U.S. Patriot Act. Can we go back over that? Just something simple. Ms. Bullard, your mic is muted.
Sorry, that on chapter 3. I was thinking that sanctions was in this chapter, but only taxes. So next week we'll talk about section 319, the extraterritorial arm of the U.S. and all the sanctions. Okay, so we didn't cover that today.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay, but read, of course, so you come prepared. So by next week, you'll explain that to me, Jasmine. But what you don't understand, we'll delve a little deeper to ensure that just how at the beginning we wasn't clear about taxes and we're leaving now, so we have an overview, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank
okay,
you.
good. So next week for
Okay.
sanctions. Okay. Any other questions or concerns? No? Okay. So there are some classwork questions. You can use the remainder of the time to write it out. Writing it out helps you to remember. And like I said, those questions are probably more than likely the multiple choice questions. And then of course there is an essay question on the compare and contrasting the difference. Okay, very easy points to get. So take the remainder of the time to do your classwork and let me know next week if you have any questions. At the beginning of the class, somebody sent me an email about the classwork questions for chapter 1. Is that person here? Anybody who sent an email? No? Okay, so we'll check again next week and just let me know if you have any difficulty answering any of the questions. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so have a fabulous week.
Same to you. Y'all have a good evening, good weekend.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Same to you.
All right.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you.